Agent David O. Show.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the show and excited about today's topic. Today, we're going to be talking about something that's a little controversial here, but it's my opinion and I'm sticking behind it. We're going to title this episode The Death of Wholesaling. The Death of Wholesaling. And here's why, I might be one of the only people out here calling for this or championing this is as an investor, I got started like a lot of us and learned the wholesale game, started doing it. In fact, my first investment property that I ever purchased, I bought from a wholesaler. And I lost my butt on that deal. It was absolutely miserable and terrifying. And it was only years later that I was just like kind of going back and researching that particular property. And I found out that the wholesaler that I bought it from was actually wholesaling another wholesaler's property. And so that wholesaler that I bought it from made like 10 grand. The wholesaler that actually bought it directly from the seller made another 20 grand. And here I was at this end of chain of transactions, holding the bag, losing my butt on this property and just started with a very sour taste in my mouth, experiencing the wholesale game and how they can kind of take advantage of new buyers or out of state buyers or people who aren't really paying attention to what's going on. Because traditionally, when you're buying a wholesale, there's no contingencies, right? You're buying as is, it's cash. There's no inspection period, nothing. You're getting it. And you're taking on a lot of risk, right? And of course, as I matured as an investor, I came across properties that I didn't want to buy myself, but I saw there was value there, so I wholesaled it to another investor, and I always kind of felt icky or slimy when I was doing that, even though, I wasn't trying to screw anybody over. I had a good property under contract and I was wholesaling at a good price where I believe on the few deals that I did wholesale, the end buyer did make money and they did do well. But there's that period of time where you're shopping it to people and everyone's very skeptical. Why aren't you buying this if it's such a good deal? And you've got to come up with some reasons that don't spook them. Oh, it needs too much work, or I hate the area, a lot of gunshots. That's the kind of answers they're looking for. But it kind of just it felt icky, and I knew I didn't like it. And many years ago, I decided that I wasn't going to do wholesaling, that I was just going to use my license. I was going to represent the buyer. And it turns out that I can make commissions, just as much in commission as a wholesaler can, wholesaling a property. But there's some very big benefits to not being a wholesaler, and I want to go through them real quick. So on the wholesale side, what are some of the characteristics of wholesaling a property? Number one, you take financial risk yourself by putting a property under contract, right? So when I'm wholesaling, I'm putting the seller's property under contract with the seller, and then I'm hoping to either assign that contract or get another contract to buy from me, so that I can make money and not have to close on the deal myself, right? So you take tremendous financial risk, right? Because if you're not super, super, super confident that you can sell it for more than you're buying it for, you're going to lose money or you're going to end up having to back out of a deal. In fact, I just got off the phone with a relative of mine that's going through a really difficult time because a wholesaler put his property under contract and he moved out and moved in and put down a security deposit, rented an apartment, moved all of his stuff. And then 2 months later, we're a week before the closing date, and the wholesaler says, "Hey, I'm backing out. I couldn't find an end buyer for your property. So, we're backing out of the contract." And it's like, wait a minute, you just had this tied up for 2 months, and all of a sudden you're just backing out. And so he feels like he got scammed and misled, and none of this was in the conversation when they bought the house from him. They said, "Hey, leave all your things. Go ahead and move on. This is quick and easy. This is cash. This is the fast sale, right?" And just totally wasn't the case. And so perfect. And that's one of and I know I'm not going to drop any names here, but that this is one of the top wholesaling companies in our market. They do hundreds and hundreds of deals every single year, and this is the type of service that clients are getting, and it's really disappointing. And so, yeah, so financial risk, right? And that is the example there of the wholesaler not taking, not going to take the risk of taking a loss in buying this. So they just back out and they leave the seller there holding the bag, and very disappointing that that's the result for some of these sellers. What else with wholesaling? The other thing is the awkward conversations, right? Because many times the wholesaler puts it under contract, and the seller has no idea what's going on, right? Because if the wholesaler comes in and says, "Hey, I'm going to buy your property for 100,000, and then I'm going to sell it to somebody else for 130,000 before we close, so I never have to come up with the cash, and I'm just going to net the 30K difference and go on my way." Would the seller ever accept that offer, right? Like, hey, why are you getting 30 grand when you didn't do anything and you didn't even buy the property? Like, that's crazy, right? So you have this awkward situation where the seller thinks the property is sold, and then you have to somehow bring your end buyer into the property and show it to them. And a lot of times you pretend to be the buyer pretends to be a contractor or an inspector or an insurance agent. And it's all this, these games that are being played. And it's not honest, right? It's like I know I don't want to go into the property and lie to the seller and say, "Hey, I'm an inspector," when I'm actually just looking to buy this from the wholesaler. It doesn't feel right to me, and I hate when those type of situations are happening and sellers are getting misled. So you have all these awkward situations just to get in and show the property. It also feels very dirty to the end buyer, right? So the end buyer's coming in, and they know that you're buying this at a steep discount and are wholesaling it. And what would be a fair wholesale fee? I don't know, maybe around 3% or something that would mimic kind of like a normal realtor commission or something like that. But many times the wholesalers are trying to maximize what they can get. So it could be an outrageous fee. And so a lot of times it'll feel very icky to the buyer, especially if they find out what that fee is at the closing table. So we've seen many, many deals where, the wholesaler is just trying to assign it, and it'll show up on the closing statement. And oh my gosh, like, how can I digest a 25% markup on this property when you're just trading paper, right? And they're not bringing any collateral or taking any risk in the deal. Um, the other thing with wholesaling, it's becoming illegal. So states and legislations are cracking down on it. Our neighboring state here in Missouri is Illinois. You now can't do wholesaling. You have to have a real estate license if you want to be engaged in any type of transactions in real estate like that. And many other states are doing it. I know Oklahoma and Arizona have restrictions too, and it's starting to catch on, right? And then the last thing I'll say about the wholesaling side of this equation is what's happening a lot are people are trying to wholesale other wholesalers' deals. And boy, does that turn into a giant disaster quickly, right? So somebody will see on Facebook a wholesaler put out a property, and they'll just copy all the information down, right? Copy the pictures, copy the text, and then put it out to their buyers list and say, "Hey, I've got this property," and they'll tack on another 10, 15 grand on the price. And now they're wholesaling the wholesalers wholesale. So when the contract does finally come in, there's this daisy chain of communications, and anything that happens to go wrong during the thing ends up turning into a complete disaster. We just experienced that. We were representing a seller as just a normal traditional listing, and we didn't know that the buyer was actually a wholesaler, and the wholesaler sold it to another wholesaler who sold it to an end buyer. And so all of a sudden we're wondering where the money is at the closing table and where what's happening. And we get introduced to party A and B and C, and finally we get to the end buyer, and they're like, "Hey, we don't even know, we didn't know you were the seller, and we didn't know you were the buyer." And it's like, you know, luckily that deal somehow worked out, but it had all the markings of something that was going to just blow up in everybody's faces and have no close deal at the end of the day. But that's wholesaling, right? So that's another day in the life of a wholesaler on that side of the equation. The alternative here is what I wanted to propose, and what we do over at Cashflow Nation is we represent the buyer. So we're licensed agents. We call ourselves real estate investment advisors. We're acting in the best interest of the buyer. We're helping them with their due diligence. We're helping them analyze the number. We're connect numbers. We're helping them connect with property managers, contractors, whoever they need to get the deal done at the end of the day. We want to see them be successful so they can go on and buy another deal and start building wealth in their portfolio, right? Um, so the beautiful thing about being having your license and just working with the buyers is I can make just as much in wholesale or in commissions that the wholesaler would in wholesale fees, but it's much cleaner. It's a much more um, uh, natural relationship to have. Number one, there is no financial risk to me when I am working with a seller or a wholesaler for that matter. I am not physically putting my name on a sales contract and saying, I'm going to buy your property, right? There's zero financial risk. All I'm doing is having them sign a form that says, hey, if I bring the buyer, you're going to pay me this much commission. Okay. So that allows me to be completely transparent with them from the very start of the thing. Like if I'm not planning on buying it, if I don't have a buyer, then why would I put it under contract, right? So so from the very start, I'm saying, hey, I'm going to bring the buyer and I'm going to get paid a commission doing so. Here's a form to sign that allows me to bring a buyer to into your home and sell your home. Okay. And so I'm representing the buyer, and the seller is paying, or the wholesaler for this matter, is paying my commission for me. So this works out great for the buyer because the buyer's not having to bring cash to the closing table to pay my commission. It's getting handled from the seller, and then I can show them, right? So there's nothing to hide. Everyone knows the role I'm playing, right? I'm representing an end buyer, and a lot of times I'm finding them off market deals. So I'm bringing tremendous value to them, right? I'm bringing them a deal that they can't just find on the MLS, right? And the beautiful thing about this is it works really, really, really well with other wholesalers. So instead of trying to wholesale another wholesaler's deal, because hey, that looks like a decent deal, I might have an end buyer for that deal. Instead of putting it under contract and creating another daisy chain there, I can just go to the wholesaler and say, hey, I've got a buyer for this. Do you mind if I put my commission on top of your wholesale price? And 99% of the time, they're going to be ecstatic about that. They're going to say, yes, please put your commission on top of your wholesale price because they're so used to all the agents saying, hey, can you pay me a commission when they've already published their price? And let's say their price is $100,000. Well, now they've got to take a commission out of their margin on whatever that $100,000 price gives them. And so they're ecstatic if I say, hey, can I put my commission on top of your price? And so I'll send them that form. And the beautiful thing about putting the commission on top of the price is you get to set your own commission in that case. Now I'll tell you, most of our deals, minimum, we have $5,000. So we're walking away with $5,000. If there's room for more, we'll take a look at the comps, take a look at the repairs it needs, and do some analysis there, and when we may do a bigger commission. Just all depends on the deal. But it works really, really well with wholesalers because we can just wear the buyer's agent hat, represent the buyer, seller pays our commission, and we bring the buyer's contract directly to the wholesaler, directly to the seller. and there's not another layer of wholesaling or daisy chaining around. And I have no financial risk or liability there. I'm just getting paid my commission when the deal closes. So I am all in favor of buyer's agency replacing wholesaling. I love the concept. We teach it here at Cashflow Nation. I'd love to talk to you if you're an investor, if you're an agent that wants to get into this type of thing and add some more income to your month or your yearly transactions. We'll show you exactly how to do that. Just go to joincashflownation.com. Go to joincashflownation.com and we'll see you on the other side.